Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Friday?
Always happy on a Friday. Looking forward to games this weekend. The game last night was quite exciting.
Yeah, I
got a lot to say about that. And, some other hot topics that have arisen since we last spoke. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's jump into it. So last night, the Detroit Lions added another chapter to their incredible season so far, defeating the Green Bay Packers 34-31 in a game that came down to the wire. Dan Campbell calling, and I'm going to actually bring up the play right now. Dan Campbell calling in a very, very aggressive play, fourth and inches when it mattered. 43 seconds left. It was a very, very controversial play. People going crazy about it online, whether or not that was a stupid or smart idea. We'll get into that actually a little bit later on in the show, but they were able to convert, which then moves their winning streak to now 11 straight games, the longest in franchise history. While Green Bay showed plenty of fight, they could not stop the Lions when it mattered the most. I would like to know from your perspective, my question is, how impressive was this win for the Detroit Lions?
I thought it was very impressive. I didn't pick them. I thought their defense was so banged up with 13 players on IR that they would not be able to pull us out against a Green Bay team that looks pretty good and is a playoff team right now. Had a chance. They'd won this game to maybe compete for the NFC North title. But now I'd say that's not going to happen for them. Having been beat, give the Lions a lot of credit in this game. Total yards, the Green Bay 298, the Lions 391. Total plays, the Green Bay only 45, the Lions 76. Time of possession, the Green Bay 23 minutes, almost 24 minutes. The Lions 36 minutes, and then those conversions on third down. The Lions 7 of 15, Green Bay 1 of 5. Fourth down, this is where the real difference was. 4 of 5 for the Lions. Red zone efficiency, the Lions 4 out of 5. So would the Green Bay also. Goal to goal efficiency, the Lions 4 of 4. I mean, their offense is I think their offense is the best in the league. My main takeaway from this game, the Lions' strategy to keep Green Bay offense off the field and not to expose their defense, which is riddled with injuries, worked. I mentioned the time of possession, the Green Bay only 24 minutes. And I think that was the main reason for the win, along with Green Bay's inability to stop the Lions' offense. I mean, the Lions now, the best offense in the league. They got that 1-2 punch with the running backs. Jared Goff, a top 5 quarterback. The wide receivers playing well. Everything's clicking for them on offense. And thank God for them last night, because it was a very close game despite all of that. And their defense, I don't know, when they get into the playoffs, if they can't get some of those guys back, it's going to be hard for them to make it to the Super Bowl.
Well, I've been on this team. I've been very hot on this team for a number of weeks. Actually, a couple of years ago, that's when I started, because I could say you can make the argument they could win 8 games, or you can make the argument they could lose about 11 games, and they were on the better side of that a couple of years ago. So I've been very hot on the Lions since this growth, and since Dan Campbell went 3-13 his first year with the Lions, they've really taken a massive leap forward to now being true Super Bowl contenders. And it's weird in recent history when you bring the Lions into the true Super Bowl contender category. Generally, that's not what you think of. You think of wasted talent. Matthew Stafford, when he was with the Lions, he did a perfectly fine job and he put up great numbers. It's just the level of success wasn't there. The wins weren't there. They had Megatron. He's arguably one of the best receivers talent-wise in NFL history. He's a Hall of Famer. They just couldn't get anything done with him. They make it to the wild card. They lose. You never win the division. But this team is different. This group of guys is different. The way the offense is playing is different. They have been the number 1 team in the NFL. Yes, while the record didn't say it 6 weeks ago, You just got to look at the eye test. Everybody likes to criticize me on the show. Check the comments section about how I'm always the stat guy and I'm way too focused on stats. Well, when it comes to the Lions, it's been a mixture of both stats and the eye test. The eye test for me was what put them over the Chiefs weeks ago when the Chiefs were still undefeated. You just got to look at how the team plays. Jared Goff can throw 5 interceptions. They still win. They could play poorly. The offense can't get going. The defense will step up. If I'm not mistaken, Jordan Love in the first half only had 5 completions. I mean, he was shut down passing-wise in this first half of the game. And a defense that brought up Quan Alexander and Jamal Adams just a few days prior absolutely shut down this offense in the first half. It was a complete, I think, shock to a lot of people that thought maybe with all the injuries, and they have 18 players on IR, by far the most in the NFL, that the defense would get exposed against Josh Jacobs, who was scoring lights out, and he did in this game. I believe he had 3 rushing touchdowns. It was incredible to watch. But when it comes to efficiency, outside of the red zone, outside of the scoring area, there wasn't really that much production from the running game. Josh Jacobs is the most lethal weapon on offense for the Green Bay Packers, and the Detroit defense did a phenomenal job at slowing and stopping him in the large part. Yes, he did score 3 rushing touchdowns, but it was largely ineffective when it came to extending drives, keep the clock going. Jordan Love wasn't great. He had nearly 50% completion percentage. He didn't make. He had a number of very bad throws, and one in particular that I could think of on the red zone. And this really was the game. If you look back at it, hindsight's always 20/20. You look back and on the goal line, there was an out pass to, I believe, Tucker Kraft, or it was to a tight end, and he completely missed the throw. It was a wide open pass, right side of the field. Everybody was expecting Josh Jacobs to run it in. And it was a beautiful design play, and they could not execute. Jordan Love cannot execute on that level. Where it was a wide open throw, it would have been a touchdown, no doubt about it, and he missed. So the Green Bay had its opportunities, several of them. Interception off Jared Goff, which I believe they scored on. Really, Jared Goff in the first half was not great. A lot of missed throws, not great throws. The first drive, I think, was beautifully orchestrated. But when it came down to it, this is a Lions team that can, and in my prediction back in the preseason, will win the Super Bowl. Now, my AFC prediction is falling flat. It was the Bengals, so I'm just saying that my AFC prediction's already down the toilet. But I feel very strong about my NFC pick. This Detroit Lions team, it doesn't matter if it's adversity. It doesn't matter if they're playing at the top of their game like they were against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This team is a different breed. You look at the NFC, there is one true contender, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the only other team that could compete with this Detroit Lions team. And the only advantage they have truly over the Detroit Lions is health. That is the only thing. I think Dan Campbell, consistency-wise and culture-wise, I think Dan Campbell's a better head coach than Nick Sirianni. I think when the offense is healthy, it's better than Philadelphia's. And when the defense, because we heard last night from Albert Breer that if the Lions make the Super Bowl, Aiden Hutchinson could be out there. And last time we saw Aiden Hutchinson, his leg was wrapped around another defender's leg. So the fact that he might be back for the Super Bowl, I think regardless if he plays every snap or if he plays 10 snaps, just having him out there, it is a threat for the offense to scheme against. So this team, this Detroit team is different. They played very, very well. Green Bay tried its best. It had its opportunities. People are complaining about the refs all the time. Refs miss calls. That's fine. We get mad at the egregious ones, where it's, for instance, the should have been pass interference. I believe it was Chiefs-Packers. That should have been pass interference. It wasn't called. We get very upset when the refs get too much into the game. I mean, the one in particular was a Detroit defender slapped Jordan Love's helmet. I remember when we were like, come on, man, when that happened to Mahomes. We had a come on, man, when that happened in the AFC Championship game for Tom Brady. So do we want those to be called or do we not want them to be called? Because people complain about it when it gets called, and then when it doesn't get called, we hear everybody complaining about the refs. So, yes, we want consistency, but I think the fans want it to always go their way when it doesn't. Yeah. I think the egregious calls, the ones that should absolutely be called, that are so blatantly obvious, those are the ones people get frustrated about, and also, and especially on Thursday, which we've seen, when the refs get too involved in the game, which this didn't happen, let them play. People are saying OPI should have been called on a couple of plays. To me, it doesn't really matter. The way that the Detroit Lions played was incredibly impressive. Props to them entirely.
Yeah, I agree. The Lions running backs, a major strength here. They continue to be strong. a strong positive for the offense. Montgomery had a TD on the opening drive. Gibbs receiving TD right at the end of the second quarter. They're the first duo in Lions history to have 12 scrimmage TDs in the season, and they still have 4 games to play. The defense is banged up, and it's not as effective as it was early in the season. You got Arnold, the rookie cornerback, has 7 pass interference calls, which leads the league. Tim Patrick was a surprise. He's been a surprise. Actually played very well last night. 6 receptions, 43 yards, and a touchdown. I'd say it looks like the Packers, they're done for a division winner. They're not going to get there. They're 3 games behind the Lions with only 4 to play. And they were swept by the Lions in the series this year, and they were beat badly in the first game. The division, they're only 1-3. They still have to play the Vikings and the Bears for the rest of the season. Their defense couldn't stop the Lions at the end. I think that was a big turning point in the game to get that final chance for a win or a tie. That play, a 2nd and 17, a pass to St. Brown for 16 yards. Then they stopped him on 3rd down, 3rd and 1, but they converted the 4th down. And that was 4 out of 5 4th down conversions in that game. And we also did very well, 7 of 15 on 3rd down. So, they just control the ball. They kept the Lions, the Green Bay's offense off the field. And that was the difference in the game. And the Lions' offense is spectacular. It really is. And Love, he's definitely taken a step back from the way he played the second half last year. As you mentioned, he missed some wide open passes. He only had 31 yards in the first half.
It was bad.
It was a pretty bad performance. So I still think Green Bay makes the playoffs, but the Lions, if they could get some of those guys back on defense, I think it's quite a long ways till we get to the Super Bowl. If Hutchinson could come back for the Super Bowl, that certainly would. If they make it, that certainly would be a shot in the arm for them. But long way to go.
All right, let's talk about the controversy in this game because let's just jump right into it. So Detroit went for it 5 times, converted 4 out of the 5 times, including this critical 4th and inches play with 43 seconds left in the game. Rather than kicking a field goal to take the lead, Dan Campbell elected to trust his offense and keep it out there and keep the drive alive, basically sealing the game. And David Montgomery did deliver, breaking through for a 7-yard gain, which set up a Jake Bates game-winning field goal as time expired. It was a bold decision. It was risky, but it did pay off. But it obviously wasn't without controversy. That was the big thing for the media last night and into today. So I want to know, you're not a fan of Dan Campbell's gambles, so I want to know, did you have a problem with Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down so much, especially in a game with playoff, division and playoff implications, and maybe an unnecessary gamble?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not big on gambling when I don't think it's necessary. In this case, in this game, I understand why he went for it so many times on 4th down. He has a defense that's very banged up. He wanted to keep the Green Bay's offense off the field, which can be explosive, and his strategy worked. The situation and the scenario was, the Packers at 9-3, a threat to win the division, and the Lions with 13 players on defense on IR, a threat to have Green Bay run all over them. Well, it didn't happen. Actually, the defense played pretty well for Green Bay. For the Lions, it's Green Bay's defense that didn't play so well. I think Campbell has built a culture where his players know that they have his trust and belief that they're going to succeed when they get into these risky situations. And he calls for it on 4th down. It failed once last night. They did it on their own 30-yard line and didn't get in, and the Green Bay went right down the field and got a touchdown. So that was questionable there. But you look at 11 conversions on 3rd and 4th down together, 76 plays, 13 defensive players on IR. They failed once on their own 30 that led to the Green Bay TD. I think as a package, this game, you got to give Dan Campbell a lot of credit, and I do call him Dan Gamble. I don't think in some situations it's worked out well for him. You look back to last year, in the NFC Championship game when it failed on fourth down, when they could have kicked the field goal to tie the game, and they wound up losing by 3. They were also up 24-7 at the end of the first half in that game and wound up not winning it. I think that was a step back for him in terms of his culture of gambling and counting on his players to deliver in those fourth down situations. I didn't think it was necessary in that game, and that was a huge game. Big plays, those plays, the most important plays of the season. They didn't make it, but overall in this game, I think he made the right decisions, and I give him a lot of credit.
I'm shocked you would take that route. Because normally you're like, don't risk it, especially in the big-time games. I classify this as a big-time game because not only does it have division implications, it also has major conference implications because if you lose, that means the Eagles have an opportunity to claim that number 1 spot in the NFC and get a bye, which the Lions desperately need with their injuries. But for me, as I have been, and probably for as long as I keep doing this show, as I'll always be, as long as it keeps working, this is who the Lions are. This is their culture. I think personally, Campbell was doing it for 2 reasons. One, it's what he does. That's the culture he built. It's the smarter, no risk it, no biscuit, but on the defensive side, it is a better version because it actually works of Brandon Staley's recklessness. When it came to Brandon Staley, he wasn't a good coach, so it kept failing and failing and failing. Dan Campbell, I think, is a much more innovative mind in the NFL. I think he is he's probably, in my opinion, a top 5 head coach in the NFL. People could debate that all they want, but that's my opinion. And this is what he does. He takes risks, and he's actually pretty damn good at it. But the second one is, I think that when we look at how this team is as it currently stands, you got to give your defense a break. They're dropping like flies. So to keep bringing them out there for snap after snap after snap, the risk of injury is 100% because they're out there. I'm not saying that players will go down every single play, but the fact that they're out there raises an injury risk on a side of the ball you cannot suffer another injury at, because now you're bringing guys off the street to come and play for you. Sort of push-asides and leave-behinds. That's who's out there. Quan Alexander and Jamal Adams. That's who they had to bring in, and days later they're starting and trying to make plays. There was actually a play that Quan Alexander failed in a coverage spot just because he's not used to this team. He has not played much so far this season. So they had to go out and get him. They had to fill in a spot that they needed. So this was both playing to win and going against not playing to lose, because Dan Campbell always plays to win. The 2-point conversion against Dallas last year, which the ref screwed up, thanks Brad Allen for that, it worked, except it was the ref's fault that they actually lost. In this situation, it was do not give Jordan Love an offense that really was a major spark in the second half. Do not put them out there. I know there was 40 seconds left. I know they had no timeouts left, but you don't know what happened. Everybody thought the Bills would win in the playoff game when they had 13 seconds left. The Chiefs had 13 seconds to go 40 yards and kick a field goal. And guess what? That's exactly what they did. So it doesn't matter how much time. We just saw the Chargers, with I think 30 seconds left, drive the entire length of the field against Baltimore in the first half and kick an end-of-half field goal to make it 14-13. So anything is up on the line. We saw, actually, in the Commanders-Cowboys game, we saw a massive Hail Mary, which should have actually tied the game if the Washington Commanders field goal kicker didn't miss the kick. That was like an 80-yard touchdown bomb when they desperately needed a touchdown, because they were either low on timeouts or out of timeouts. The Commanders needed it. They got it. So we don't know what would have happened. So Dan Campbell put his trust in his players, which is massive for a team that desperately needs it, because this team is banged up, bruised, and really, they need every single bit of help they can. And that bye with the number 1 seed, getting that rest that they desperately need, is massive. And yes, it is recklessness, and that's the way that is the way I thought you would go, is that it was a reckless decision.
Well, I would say the other thing I would say about my understanding and kind of acceptance of the strategy used in this game against the Lions so far this year, against Green Bay so far this year, he's gone for it 7 times on fourth down and succeeded 6 times and gotten 4 touchdowns out of it. So that's a huge success rate. His most by any opponent in 24 years at the end of this. But you look at his record overall as a head coach, going for it on fourth down. He's done it 140 times. He's succeeded 77 times. That's a 55% completion rate. That's 13th in the league, so it's not that great. But that's his
13th is not that great.
13th is not so high.
It's above half. It's above midway.
Half, but still,
Nearly
it's not in the top 5 when he bases his whole culture around this kind of risk taking. I think that it's really not that great an outcome.
Now, is that of coaches all time, or is that current active coaches? Because if it's
just since he became head coach.
Okay,
it's 13th in the league.
My only concern, and this is the way I thought you were going to go, is in big time moments like the playoffs, should he go for it? Because we saw in the second half against the 49ers where he made a couple big time gambles, which ended up at the end costing them because
I don't think so.
It was a 6-point disparity.
I think it's a different situation then.
You think Dan Campbell is actually going to play conservative in the playoffs?
I didn't say that. I said that my own opinion is that when these plays are so big at that time in the year, and it puts you in a position to tie the game, you should go for the field goal. I think it was a very makeable field goal. They were reasonably close. He did it twice. He went twice on fourth down and failed both times against the 49ers. You're going up against the very best teams, and when you get into the playoffs, it's a different situation. I think, and mistakes like that can cost so much when it's win or you go home.
I think it was and I think Dan Campbell even said it in the post game where he trusts his players. They were going to do this if it got late. Jared Goff already knew that they were going to go for it if they needed it. They were playing for the win. They needed the win here because that number 1 seed for this team in particular is the most important position that they need to play for. They are so banged up. They need a full week of basically not playing because their schedule is brutal to end the year.
Yeah.
Now going forward, it's Bills, at Bears, at Niners, and Minnesota. Now, based on injuries and based on just season situation, the Bears are going to be out of the playoffs soon enough. The 49ers, they're banged up and not playing well, but it doesn't matter who you're playing when this team keeps getting hurt every single drive, essentially. Their defense is so battered and bruised. Like I said, 18 players on IR. That's the most in the NFL.
Yeah.
The Buffalo game, if Philly somehow loses this week against Carolina, which we just saw them, I don't know if it was the Chiefs or if it was just the fact that Carolina is now at least somewhat respectable, can you take a loss anywhere the rest of the season and still hold the 1 seed? I don't think you can. So you have to start hoping and praying that you could have repeat games like this, where the offense is clicking at a clip just good enough where you could stay in games and you could still put up W's. Because if your defense falters and Jared Goff starts getting trigger happy and has another game like the Texans, except the defense can't stop the offense, which the Detroit Lions defense did against Houston, then you're going to start losing games and lose the number 1 seed in the NFC, which doesn't matter. I don't care about any other outcome in the NFL. The biggest situation for Detroit, for any team, the highest stakes, is Detroit getting the number 1 seed. Buffalo doesn't need the 1 seed. They don't need it because they'll have home field advantage up until the AFC Championship game if the Chiefs make it that far. Because right now they hold the 1 seed.
Yeah, well, I think the Eagles have an easier schedule the rest of the way than the Lions do. I think it's a possibility they could wind up with the same record there at the end of the year.
So then it gets down into the tie-breaking situation.
I don't know what the tiebreakers are.
So right now the Eagles, they play Carolina this week at home against the Steelers, at Commanders, versus Cowboys, versus Giants. So the way it should turn out, the definite wins are against the Panthers, Cowboys, and Giants. At Commanders could be interesting. And then Steelers are a very, very feisty team. Yeah. So who knows exactly what's going to happen in that game. But you have an opportunity to maintain this and make it 15-2. And the Lions, just because they're so banged up, they're probably gonna just drop a game just due to the fact that they're so banged up.
Well, playing the Bills, that's going to be a tough game. They're lucky they play them at home. They play very well at home.
Yes, they do. Well, the big thing about Jared Goff is that he's a dome quarterback. So who knows? But he's kind of killing that narrative with that win over in Green Bay earlier this year. All right, let's get into our next topic here. So this is interesting. So following the dismissal of head coach Matt Eberflus after another disappointing season, Chicago Bears president Kevin Warren made a bold declaration with the team poised to potentially hold 2 top picks in the upcoming draft, significant salary cap flexibility, and a fan base that needs to win because they haven't won in several years. President Warren is painting an enticing picture of what's to come. Listen to what his take is about the head coaching search and about the positive outlook of his team.
We are in a unique situation. This will be the most coveted job in the National Football League this year. And Ryan and I need to work hand in hand together to make sure we bring that to life, not only from a head coach standpoint, but also from an entire staff standpoint. We are in a unique.
So I'm that looped on there. So I'm curious: is the Bears head coaching job? This is what the Bears president Kevin Warren's saying. Is the Bears coaching job truly the most coveted and will be the best available job for any potential head coaching hires?
Absolutely not. I think I was shocked by his statement by that. The way, actions speak a lot louder than words. You look at the way they treated Eberflus after he lost the game on Thanksgiving Day. They let him go do a press conference, right, where he said, I expect to be here. I'm just going to just grind it out. 2 hours later, they fired him. And they said, oh, we hadn't made the decision when he was out there doing the press conference. They made him look like a fool. I thought that was a terrible thing to do. They shouldn't have let him do. If they had any question in their mind that they thought they were going to fire him, which we knew they did, they shouldn't have let him go do the press conference. You look at the history of the Bears and how they've done and how they've treated their head coaches. They have since 2012 had 4 different head coaches. They fired Lovie Smith when he had that year. He had a 10-6 record. If any Bears coach had a 10-6 record the last 4 or 5 years, they would be they'd be considered one of the best coaches they've ever had. They've only had 1 season above 500 in the past 12 years. Nagy was 12-4 in 2018. They've lost 2 playoff games that they managed to get in. They finished last or tied for last in the NFC North 7 of the past 12 years. As I mentioned, they allowed Eberflus to make a fool of himself in the press conference after Thanksgiving debacle before firing him just 2 hours later. Warren, this is what Warren said, we had not made a final decision before the press conference. Come on, you knew you were thinking about firing the guy. You shouldn't have let him go out there and make a fool out of himself. The Bears stand, and Warren, this is another thing he said, the Bears stand for family, integrity, and doing things the right way. Yeah, well, come on. Actions speak louder than words. Once we made a decision, we wanted to make sure to talk with Matt about that so he could have the respect and call his family. Well, you made him look like a fool, letting him be out there in front of the press. What does his family think about that? In retrospect, he says, we could have done a better job. No kidding. And Poles, he's going to hang on to that guy, Ryan Poles. He's going to remain the GM. They have faith in him. It's very strong. He will be the point person in the head coaching search. Right now, the coaching situation to me for the Bears is in disarray. You have Thomas Brown as interim head coach. 3 weeks ago, he was some assistant coach. He moved up to be the OC for 1 week, and then he's the interim head coach. The wide receiver coach, Chris Beatty, is going to be the offensive coordinator, and Eric Washington takes over as the defensive play caller. These guys have no experience doing this. I see the Bears losing the rest of the games this season. And somebody's going to want to be the head coach. Lots of guys who have never been a head coach want to step up and be head coach. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of interest in the job. But is it the most coveted job in the NFL? Absolutely not.
Well, I think it's interesting because I actually disagree with you. I think the Bears are a very, very nice job to work with because we have to think about what they have. And when you come look at a head coach and where they're going to go, and a brand new head coach, you have to obviously figure out the best team. Jim Harbaugh transitioning from college to the NFL, he really had his eyes on one job. There's a report out there that he was interested in the Bears job, but back last September, the initial reports were he had his eyes on one singular job, and that was the Los Angeles Chargers because you have to take a look at what the Chargers had. a defensive roster that was underperforming because of poor head coaching. Brandon Staley had a beautiful array of defenders on his roster that he could not coach up to the level of what they were on paper. And an offense that was pretty decent, but there obviously would be a transitional period, which was made instant with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both leaving. And also getting rid of Austin Eckler and such. But there was talent on the team. It just needed coaching. And it turned out to be true. Justin Herbert's having a very effective year. J.K. Dobbins, when healthy, has been a very, very nice piece. And the defense is one of the best in the NFL. So Jim Harbaugh did exactly what we expected him to do, which is go in and make this team a viable option and make them play very, very hard-nosed football. So it really depends on, first of all, what kind of coach are they looking for? Because obviously the number one option is going to be Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. That is going to be an interesting pick. He will become an offensive head coach for an offense that has Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, as well as Cole Kmet, the tight end, Caleb Williams, the quarterback. You also have DeAndre Swift in the backfield, and also Rome Odunze, the current rookie, would-be year 2 receiver. The offensive line is exactly what they're going to need to fix, and it might take more than a season to fix it. But for me, you have all those pieces offensively and a defense that is playing pretty decently. The numbers don't really back it up, but they should be one of the better defenses in the NFL. So I think this is a very, very nice job. I mean, you look at the other jobs out there. I'm going to bring up the list right now. You look at some of the other jobs out there. The Jets are a complete tire fire. Doesn't matter what coach you are, what the players are. They're a tire fire. And the Saints are in cap hell every year. I think the first year they actually have some relief is 2027. It's 2024. So it doesn't matter. You will have basically zero flexibility because of cap penalties. I think for the past 3 or 4 seasons, they've been around the negative $100 million range every year, between negative 70 and negative 100 million every single season. And then the potential openings. Mike McCarthy's on the last year of his deal. There's rumors about Brian Daboll being fired because of how poor the season's turned out. Doug Peterson, I thought people, and excluding me, expected him to be fired weeks ago. And the Bengals job, Zach Taylor, this is one of their worst defensive performances, and a throwaway of a tremendous year from Jamar Chase, a tremendous year from Joe Burrow, and also having the sack leader in Trey Hendrickson, which, by the way, you're going to need to pay Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson, all key parts of your team. So, Zach, I know the defensive coordinator will either get demoted, get fired, or get a butt kick of how badly the defense has been. And Zach Taylor may also be terminated because of that. But these are the current head coach openings. So let's see, the top 3. Out of the top 3, who would you say is the best job?
Actually, I would say the Jets is the best job.
The New York Jets?
Yeah, I would say it's the best job because of the market.
Oh, my God.
To be in New York. I think it's a much bigger market, a much more, you get much more exposure in the New York market. I would pick the Jets. If I were somebody that was interviewing for a head coaching job, I'd go there before I go to the Bears.
Hold on. The Jets, who once again had the highest.
They're terrible. They've been terrible.
Right.
I don't. So have the Bears. The Bears have been terrible too.
Yes, but the Bears. I mean, okay, both franchises.
The Jets have a
mentality.
good defense. The Jets have a good defense.
Not this year.
Woody Johnson blew it for the defense. He fired Salah. Okay, and made
Albrecht,
who was a good defensive coach but a terrible head coach. We got distracted now. The defense fell off after Salah was fired. They still have good players on defense.
Well,
they have a very good defense, I think. They have skilled players on offense. Breece Hall is a very good player. Wilson, the wide receiver. Now they have Devontae Adams. They have good skilled players. Their problem has been quarterback. Aaron Rodgers has been horrible this year.
Well, guess what? They're going to need to find a new quarterback, but look how that's treated them recently. It's been completely abysmal. Mark Sanchez is the last decent Jets quarterback.
I know they've been terrible. I'm not saying the Jets have been good in any respect. You're asking me if I were going to look ahead interviewing for a head coaching job, would I rather be at the Bears or the Jets? I'd prefer to be at the Jets.
And that's because of what?
It's because of the market, the New York market. If you could be a winner in New York, man, you'd be in heaven.
Okay, so there's a problem with that.
Look at Rex Ryan when he came in. The first 2 years he was here. He was revered. He got him to the AFC Championship game both years, right?
But I'm pretty
He
sure
was
it wasn't
revered.
even the defensive coordinator. He was part of the defense for the amazing Ravens defense, if I'm not mistaken.
He had an excellent defense. He had a very good defense. His offense wasn't so bad either. He got to the AFC Championship game with a rookie quarterback.
Also beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
When it mattered the most.
The second year.
Yes. So here's my only issue with picking the New York Jets. You're not having a GM. They're replacing the GM. You have no quarterback one. Your offensive line is underwhelming. And also, here's the big one. You're going to need to pay Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall.
Yeah. So?
You might need to let one of them go. And my guess would be it'd be Breece Hall. Because Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams is not going to be around for the next 3 years, most likely.
He'll be around next year.
Depending on what happens. If Rodgers is not there, which we're going to talk about in the next topic after the break, which might be preseason, before the end of this season. So if Rodgers is not there, and once again, this is another move that Devontae Adams made because of somebody else. And this is what's funny. Devontae Adams has only made moves because of other people. Devontae Adams moved to the Raiders because of Derek Carr. Goes to the Jets because it leaves the Raiders because Derek Carr is gone and the head coach. He and the head coach didn't get along very well. He goes over to the New York Jets because Rodgers is there. Well, what if Rodgers is not there? Devontae Adams is going to be stuck.
Oh, maybe. Maybe they can trade him and get some good draft picks or something for him if they choose to. He's a good player. He is a good player. There's no doubt about that. He's had some great years, so he's got value. I think that the Jets' talent overall, except at the quarterback position, I would say is decent, at least as good, probably better than the Bears. Okay. They've just had terrible. I'm not saying they haven't been good. They've been terrible. They've been awful. Okay, but so have the Bears. The Bears have been awful too, and the way the Bears have treated their head coaches, I think, have been worse than what the Jets have done. So if it were me, and I had the choice to go to either the Jets or the Bears, I'd go to the Jets.
So now I want to introduce the.
Why would you want to live in Chicago? So they play outdoors, and this time of year the wind's blowing about 90 miles an hour. It's 40 below zero. Yeah, well, they won't have a new stadium for many years now. It'll take several years. You want to be out there in a 90-mile-an-hour wind and 40 below zero, playing for the Bears, who are going to lose and have been last in their division 7 out of the last 12 years? Come on.
Okay, now I want to now introduce the potential openings, right? These are obviously coaches that haven't been fired or haven't been fired yet. So I want to introduce them. Let's say McCarthy, Daboll, Peterson, and Taylor all get fired. So now there's 7 head coach availabilities. Yeah. I want to go with, now let's flip it. What is the worst job out of these 7 teams? I think there are 2 that are blatantly obvious. Okay. In my mind.
Personally, I think the Bears is.
You think the Bears is the worst job?
I do.
Wow.
And second worst, I would say, is the Jaguars.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Me and you differ.
Okay. What would you say?
I think the worst job is probably the Saints. Aging stars, bad cap space. That's bad. The second worst job, in my opinion, is the Dallas Cowboys. Meddling owner and GM, who we heard him so many times this year say, I'm not giving up my GM rights because there is no one that could do it better than me.
Yeah.
You overpaid a quarterback $60 million. Your wide receiver is getting paid massive amounts of money. Completely earned, but could have saved several $1 million if you signed him before, day 364 of the season, before the season started. And you're also going to need to pay Micah Parsons, your best pass rusher, and you have an aging offensive line, which Zach Martin, the guard, is out for the year now. He's probably going to move on eventually. Offensive line sucks. Running back room is terrible. Defense is all banged up with injuries and not really that great all around. I think the Cowboys is arguably the worst, but for me, be the second worst just because you at least have a little bit of cap flexibility.
Yeah, put him back up there. Those the other thing I'd say about, I wouldn't put
the Giants. You have a wide receiver.
I wouldn't put Dallas. I wouldn't put Dallas in there. I wouldn't put New York Giants in there. I wouldn't put the Jets in there, only because they're huge markets. Huge markets. The others, except for the Chicago, are really small market teams, right?
I mean,
Jacksonville.
I wouldn't care about the market unless it's simply just.
If you can make something good happen, if you can make anything good at all happen, and you're in a big market, it's good for your career. I think it's good for your career. I do agree with the Jerry Jones comments. He's a meddling guy.
Well,
he's
same
not
thing
very
Woody
good.
Johnson, though.
He's not very good. Woody Johnson, though, probably Trump's going to pick him to go back to be an ambassador, so he won't be around. So I still think the Jets would be the best pick out of that bunch. The New York Giants is a good spot too.
You have a wide receiver. You have a better offensive line.
They've been horrible too. But I think a lot of it. I think Brian Daboll, has got a good chance of getting fired. Because he winds up 2-15, I think he and Schoen are both gone.
Well, and that's like, I feel like, am I just making this up? I could have sworn I heard John Mara come out about a couple weeks ago and say that Shane and Daboll's jobs are perfectly fine for at least 2025. I could be making that up, and things could change.
They did say that, but things change when you wind up 2-15.
Right.
I think that would be the same. And I will say, I'll take back, I'll clarify here. Of all these teams, the best franchise here, I think, is the New York Giants. I think the Giants is the best franchise. They have a history. They have a mystique about them. They have won Super Bowls. They have had some excellent head coaches over their history. They have an ownership that is understanding, at least, and unless you're winning, you're losing all but 2 games a year. So if I had my choice amongst all these teams, you asked me about the first 3.
Yes,
I would pick the Giants. I would go to the Giants because it's a big market team. It's a storied franchise. It's going to have maybe the first pick in the draft this year. It has a decent. I think the coaching has not been very good on the defense because they have decent players on defense. They got nothing on offense really, except they got Malik Neighbors, and they have They have this Tracy guy who's a
Tyrone Tracy.
He's an okay running back, and they have who's the other wide receiver? He's been there for
Darius Slayton.
Yes, I think he's pretty good too. But their offensive line has been a real problem for them. A coach that could come in and just improve them and make them just consistently a 500 team for 2 or 3 years would be in heaven in New York City, because they've been so bad for so long, and so have the Jets. Been so horrible,
losing culture, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I think my only I would say the Bengals would be very attractive, except Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, he's cheap.
Yeah.
He's cheap.
It's a small market team.
If they decide to actually pay Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson, get a better defensive coordinator, and then draft primarily defense,
they'll probably be losing money.
Does it matter? You have Joe Burrow, who, when healthy, we see him this year. He's one of the, if not the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
When healthy, and he's clicking on all cylinders. He leads the league in passing yards.
Mm-hmm. They need better coaching on defense.
And that's my whole point.
Because their defense...
Just spend money on defense.
It wasn't that long ago they were in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. DJ Reader, who's currently on the Detroit Lions, is he not one of the best tandems in the defensive interior for the Lions? He's a massive part of that defense and massive part of the amount of pressure they generate. I'm sure the Cincinnati Bengals would love to have him back. Except they got Trey Hendrickson, who currently leads the league in sacks, but it doesn't matter because you're not getting to the quarterback that often, for the rest of your team, and you're letting up points like nobody's business. Spend money on players that make your team better.
Yeah, you have to spend money. There's no doubt about it.
And don't do the Jerry Jones thing where you wait until the 11th hour in the 59th minute and you're spending $6 million per year more than you would have to.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb would have gotten around probably the $30 million range.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys is a storied franchise too, but
probably the $28 million range.
I think Jerry Jones is poison there now. I think that I wouldn't want to be head coach with him there, because that's why I say he takes too much control, and he has to be the number one voice. And lately, he's been making lots of bad decisions. And it doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, a new report by Dan Graziano says that Rodgers may be off the Jets, or at least benched, before the end of the season. We'll talk about that, as well as Week 14 is upon us. We're going to make the rest of Week 14's picks and another great Harvey Hot Hen week. We will continue. I will continue, and I'll give you my 5 picks for this week coming up right after this break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show. So, Aaron Rodgers' stint with the New York Jets has been nothing short of a complete and utter disaster. The 41-year-old quarterback, who was brought in with sky-high expectations, now ranks 25th in QBR behind players like Anthony Richardson and just ahead of Daniel Jones, who's currently the backup of the Minnesota Vikings. Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider, Dan Graziano's reporting that Rodgers' poor performance combined with age and the overall dysfunction of the New York Jets might lead to a stunning decision, which is the Jets could bench or even move on from Rodgers before the season ends, with a direct quote saying, "I still would be surprised to see the Jets bench him or move on from him before the end of the season. I'll eat one of my socks if Rodgers is starting for the Jets next season," end quote. So, Rodgers, a lot of controversy in the offseason, skipping mandatory OTAs or mini camp, darkness retreats, saying he's 90% retired, 2 years ago before being traded to the Jets. Controversy surrounds Aaron Rodgers basically his entire career. So I want to know, could you see the Jets benching or even releasing Aaron Rodgers before the season even ends?
I do see that, but for this one reason, okay? Woody Johnson is furious at Aaron Rodgers, and rightfully so, because I think what happened before Saleh was fired, the night before he was fired, Aaron Rodgers talked with Woody Johnson. They said they didn't talk. There was no talk about the head coach. I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers was lobbying for Saleh to be fired. And Woody Johnson listened to that and went along with it, and it was the wrong decision, absolutely the wrong decision, because the Jets have been even worse since Saleh's been fired. The defense hasn't been anywhere near what it was. Albrecht is over his head as the head coach, trying to handle the defensive calls and the head coaching responsibilities. It's been an utter disaster. The Jets are 3-9. They're likely to be eliminated from the postseason very soon. I think Johnson wants Rodgers gone so badly that he may be released before Week 18. He may be benched or released. It's very unlikely he will be the starting quarterback next year, as Johnson wants new head coach, new GM, and new quarterback. Rodgers, 41. He looks past his prime, coming off that Achilles injury. You mentioned some of his stats. Overall, he's ranked 27th among quarterbacks. QBR 48.2. Passer rating 87.5. According to my Harvey combined rating with the 1.5 weighting on the QBR, he's at 159.8. There are many of the leading quarterbacks well over 200. He's 29th in completion percentage at 62.5. 31st in total. The Jets are 31st in total offense, 291 yards per game. It's awful. The GM and the head coach lost their jobs because they tied themselves to Rodgers and built the entire team around what they had the idea that he would be the difference maker, that everything was there except him. Well, he's been the difference on the completely opposite direction of what they expected or hoped for. And I think the team is terrible. The team culture is either terrible or non-existent. Boomer Esiason said recently the locker room is completely fractured, at least in part because of Aaron Rodgers' presence and poor play. Interestingly enough, and I'll be quiet here in a minute so you can put your 2 cents worth in. Bill Belichick weighed in on this, and he said he still thinks Rodgers has something left in the tank. But few believe Belichick would accept a call from Woody Johnson for many reasons, right? The way Belichick left before giving his resignation on a soiled napkin. I think that's never going to happen. But Belichick said these guys who switch teams, they get into a different system. Things are a bit different for them. Maybe they learn some things from whatever it was their previous experiences were. It changes. When a guy has a long career and a good career, sometimes one season is just a bump in the road. It's not necessarily the end of the road. One thing you're run into sometimes with players as they age is the injury factor, and sometimes players can have an injury at the later part in their career and make it look like maybe it's an age problem when actually it's an injury problem. And then once that injury clears up, then there's a lot more good football left in that player. Maybe, and then I'll turn this over to you, and this is my parting comment and insight. Maybe Rodgers and Belichick unite at the Giants if Belichick could talk Rodgers into being a bridge quarterback.
That is not going to happen. Rodgers has way too much pride and ego to say, you know what? I'm going to give it to this guy. Because I'm sure a lot of people, at least Packers fans, remember the news of Jordan Love getting drafted and the Packers moving up to draft Jordan Love did not sit well with Rodgers. He ended up winning back-to-back MVPs in 2020 and 2021. Then 2022, we started to see the Rodgers downfall, where last week of the season, you had everything pushed to the table. You got to win, and you lose to the Detroit Lions and get eliminated from playoff contention. So, is anything that of recent history with Rodgers new for us? Oh, I'm disgruntled with the GM. I'm not happy with ownership. I'm not happy with my current position on the team. I'm 90% retired, 10% wanting to come back. I need a darkness retreat. I'm going to do ayahuasca in exotic countries. And now all of a sudden we're hearing Woody Johnson's not happy with Rodgers. Sounds familiar. Go over to Gutekunst over at Green Bay, how they were displeased with Rodgers. We're hearing how now, apparently to Dan Graziano, he wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers is gone before the end of the season. That would be a little bit surprising because Tyrod Taylor, who, by the way, was the best Giants quarterback last year, I'd be a little bit surprised if they decide to move off of Rodgers midseason, just because I think you might as well just go with the flow and end with Rodgers being your quarterback. Although I don't think it would be a bad decision. It would just be an interesting decision because you're losing games anyway. It's the same thing with Daniel Jones, except minus the injury guarantee. I think Daniel Jones puts you in the exact same, if not a better situation to lose games and give you a higher draft pick with him out there than any of the backup quarterbacks, because at least Tommy DeVito, he could shock some people. I'm not saying he'll definitely do it, and right now he's banged up and Drew Lock seems to be the starter there, but at least he's an interesting piece and a happy, woo, clapping, Tommy DeVito, cool guy, great personality. Rodgers is dead inside. I mean, you even said it. Boomer Esiason said that, let's see, the locker room is completely fractured. And we heard players from the Jets come out and say that they're walking on eggshells because they don't want to make Aaron Rodgers unhappy. I remember very vividly early in the season of 2022, Christian Watson dropped one deep pass. They needed to do jet sweeps and end arounds to even get Christian Watson involved until week 12, where they finally started connecting again. That's how much Aaron Rodgers holds grudges. That's how much how difficult it is working with Aaron Rodgers. We don't hear those things about Tom Brady. Everybody loves Tom Brady besides mentally deranged Antonio Brown, where Antonio Brown currently is doing CTESPN. Again, it's Antonio Brown. I would not trust Antonio Brown's decisions or his opinion on how people, function in his relationship with people. I wouldn't trust it. But besides Antonio Brown, have we heard anyone come out and say that Tom Brady is an issue? Have we heard anyone come out and say that Tom Brady completely fractures the locker room, or that they need to walk on eggshells because they don't want to make Tom Brady unhappy? We've never heard that, and we never will hear that. We always heard the story of Tom Brady walking up to even rookies and introducing himself as, "Hi, I'm Tom Brady." I think everybody knows at that point who Tom Brady was. So, and also, I'll add this. Rodgers just isn't good anymore. He's not. He's not aging gracefully. His mobility is essentially gone. He had a little bit, and it's not there anymore. His accuracy in the toilet. We saw the complete and utter dismantle of the Seattle Seahawks and the New York Jets last week, where Rodgers actually and the offense did a great job in the first half. And the second half, it was a complete crap show. Rodgers, a pick six to, was it Quinnen Williams, if I'm not mistaken? I mean, that was bad. Or Leonard Williams, I think. That was bad. One of the Williams. There's so many Williams everywhere. Leonard Williams. So bad. There was a 90-yard pick six, and it was the exact same throw as Vin Ginkel's interception with the Minnesota Vikings when they were over in, London.
Yeah.
Rodgers is toast. I don't know what team
you don't
would
believe
want him.
You don't follow Bill Belichick's commentary.
Bill Belichick's about the coach for UNC.
Oh, he does. I don't know what he's going to do.
And by the way,
about it.
I think it's an underrated storyline. Andy Reid is about 3-4 years out from not only surpassing Bill Belichick in wins, but also being the number one winning coach ever. He's only a couple years out. He has a 5-year extension, and based on the amount of average wins that he has with Mahomes at quarterback, it would take him, I think, 3 or 4 seasons.
We'll see.
So I think Andy Reid right now is on pace to become the greatest head coach of all time, really stumping Bill Belichick, especially if he goes over to UNC, because at least according to the rumors, he believes that he has a better shot at making UNC a winner in a shorter time frame than he does in the NFL, no matter what team he coaches for.
I'm surprised by that.
I don't know how true that is with the NIL, with all of that. I don't truly believe it myself. But Rodgers, I said this before, is a cancer to a locker room. He cares about himself, and I guess. The fact that you have Hall of Fame or near Hall of Fame quarterbacks, prominent quarterbacks in the NFL, saying that based on the reporting, he fractures the locker room. Mm-hmm. You hear players come out and say, "Well, he never asked me to dinner. He never asked to hang out, and we have to be careful around him and make sure that he's happy." Who would want that as your quarterback?
Do you think he'll retire at the end of the year?
I think he should.
Do you think he will, though?
And here's the crazy thing. Not only do I think he should, I think if he keeps playing, that this goes on his resume. And I think, because just think about it. What do we think of Aaron Rodgers when we think of his entire career? What's really the one thing that we hone in on? The MVPs. That's it.
He has one Super Bowl.
Elongated playoff success does not exist. Does not exist. He made it to one Super Bowl, and he won it back in 2011.
He's a Hall of Famer, though.
Yes, but why?
For the MVPs and his one Super Bowl.
The MVPs are a regular season award.
And his Super Bowl
his
win.
Singular Super Bowl. That we might add, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it a defensive play that made Rodgers win that Super Bowl?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it was Clay Matthews, a big-time defensive play to stop, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers that year. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah. Well, my own
Rodgers
opinion.
only has MVPs and also touchdown interception
These
ratio.
guys all have huge egos. They all feel that they're still invincible. I predict that Aaron Rodgers will be playing in the NFL next year.
Okay, so we've done this before. We did the Baker Mayfield. I said Mac Jones.
Baker Mayfield. Let's remember Baker Mayfield. I said Baker Mayfield will be a starter in the NFL again, and I was right.
24. Rodgers will be a starter again?
Yes, I believe so.
Start for another team. And what's that other team?
I'm not sure at this point. I'm going to think about that. I'll come back with that in a future show.
Team, and we'll come back with that Tuesday. I want to write that
Tuesday.
down.
I have to tell you by Tuesday.
Well, I mean, there's only 1 year left. So based on just quarterback openings, the Jets is one. Cleveland's another. Tennessee.
The Giants.
The
Saints, maybe.
Saints maybe.
Yeah.
Raiders. And that's it. I think Carolina's going to stick with Bryce Young. He's performing well.
I do, too.
You have 6 teams.
Maybe. I have to think about it. There might be another 1 or 2 in there.
The only other one I would think, but probably not just based on his contract, would be Geno Smith in Seattle.
Yeah.
They could be looking at another quarterback. But also you have to include draft picks as well. These teams are probably, like, for instance, the Giants are going to be drafting a quarterback. The Raiders are probably going to be drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, bridge quarterback. You know? And you know what? His view would be, I'll take on the role as the mentor and the bridge to somebody else, but I'm going to play so well that guy will never get on the field. We're going to wind up playing well, and the guy will never get on the field. So that's going to be his mentality. So I don't think that worries him a bit.
Well, how about this? With this team, which Jets fans, and including us, because we thought that they would be very good this year, everybody thought the Jets would be a playoff contender. That was the baseline. That was an expectation. They're making the playoffs. It's just, well, how many playoff games are they going to win? Quick check of the standings. They're 3-9. They essentially have the same record as the New England Patriots. And after this week, they will have the same record as the New England Patriots at a measly 3-10. That's with Rodgers out there. And on top of that, I don't think he's going to be a bridge quarterback because he's currently playing injured and he won't let Tyrod Taylor take any snaps, nor will he get it looked at because it could be the end of his Jets tenure.
No, but I'm saying that he will, the mindset that the team would have that you would be our bridge quarterback, he'll accept that because he'll say, I'm going to play so well that the guy will never get on the field. I'm confident in my own abilities. So I don't think that will be something that would stop him from taking a job where they thought that he might be a bridge quarterback.
Well, I think the Jets thought he'd be there because he was entering, at 40 years old? Scrap the Achilles injury just before he actually arrived to the Jets.
It's amazing how poor he's played.
He's by the way, he came off of a bad season in 2022, then goes over to the Jets to be their savior. And everybody had high expectations for it based on a poor year, and they thought that they could bring back MVP-level Aaron Rodgers. Now, he gets hurt with the Achilles, but this year it was healthy. It's good to go. Everybody's here. We're adding pieces. People are getting healthier. Brand new offensive line that Zach Wilson got absolutely torched with the previous year. Brand new offensive line. And they're worse. They're significantly worse.
Yeah.
Robert Saleh with Trevor Siemian, Zach Wilson, and Tim Boyle won 7 games behind a worse offensive line and a more injured team.
My personal feeling is if they'd hung on to Saleh, they'd still be in contention. I still think they would be in contention because the
They'd
defense
be closer to 500.
the defense would have played much better, and they would have won some of those games that were close. They have had some close games.
They have.
They've had some close games. If the defense
But Rodgers
had been
chokes
led by him and Albrecht together, and Albrecht not having the responsibility of being the head coach, I think they would be. I think they'd still be in contention.
Well, here's my concern. Rodgers himself has not thrown for more than 200. Has not thrown 200 yards or more in 4 straight games. They've lost. I think they've won 1 out of their last 9.
It's bad. It's bad, no doubt.
Yeah.
Does it mean that Aaron Rodgers is done in the NFL? I don't think so.
He hasn't thrown for 300 yards, I think, in 2 years.
He got close, though. He had
years.
295 in a game with the Jets this year. He did get it close to 300.
But is that 300?
No,
Mac
but
Jones has
five-
had a
within
300-yard game
within
before
5
Rodgers has.
yards.
Right, but Mac Jones has had more 300 games.
That's 15
than
feet.
Rodgers.
I mean, it's pretty close.
Jets are a tire fire. Jets are an utter tire fire, but what's new? All right, it's time. Week 14 picks. We do this every single week throughout the NFL season. We pick every single game, tell you who wins and who covers. I had a great week. 15-1 in the straight up money line. And what's crazy, if you go back and look at the tape, the only one I lost was Pittsburgh and the Bengals. And I said my least favorite pick will be picking the Bengals to win and cover the -2.5 point spread, which is really tragic because the exact things that I thought would happen happened. Joe Burrow played well, but the defense couldn't stop Najee Harris. So I could have been 16-0. Unfortunately, 15-1, I'll take it. It's the best record. I broke your record from week 1. You went 14-2 to open up this season. I broke that record with a 15-1 record this week. So let's begin. Last night, I said it beautifully on Tuesday. Packers will lose, but cover the 3.5 point spread. That's exactly what happened. So I start off a perfect 1-0 in both the point spread and the money line. So let's begin with Sunday's games. Raiders at Buccaneers. Buccaneers nearly completely crapped the bed against the Carolina Panthers. So they got to figure things out right now. They should be playing much better. Meanwhile, the Raiders played very well, I think, against the Kansas City Chiefs. Defense did a tremendous job limiting Mahomes' potential ability to put up massive amounts of points, which has largely been suppressed this season just with the lack of trust in his tackles, as well as the lack of communication between him, Travis Kelce, and Xavier Worthy. In this one, though, I'm going to give it to Baker. You got to bounce back. You got very, very lucky to beat the Carolina Panthers. A late overtime fumble was the only reason why you actually won the game. Otherwise, they would just kick the field goal and beat you. But I'm taking a big comeback game, a bounce-back game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give me the Bucs to win and cover a -6.5 point spread. The next one is the Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll take the Browns to cover, but the Steelers do, in fact, get the victory here. Last time these teams played was Week 12, and Jameis Winston had a massive upset victory in the snow on Thursday Night Football against Pittsburgh. Now, I'm saying that the Steelers will win this time, but I do think it's going to be close. I think the offensive line of the Steelers, again, will have problems against Myles Garrett, who had 3 sacks and 4 quarterback hurries last time these teams played. And Jack Conklin, the tackle for the Cleveland Browns, did a tremendous job against TJ Watt last time these teams played. I'm saying that continues. Jameis Winston plays good enough to keep this game close. I'll take the Browns to cover the 6.5, but the Steelers do get the victory. Next one is the Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. I've always been a Mac Jones fan. He did tremendous last week against the Houston Texans. After Trevor Lawrence went down, we actually never even discussed that hit, that illegal hit, the dirty hit. But I'm going to take the Titans to win and cover here. Jaguars still have one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. And with Will Levis actually playing pretty well as of late, I think it will continue to basically put the Jaguars in a bad situation. I think Mac Jones plays fine. I think the Tennessee defense will get to him. The pressure will get to him. He'll probably be forced into 1 interception or 2. But with the way Will Levis is playing, Calvin Ridley should bounce back against his former team and really show him why you should have probably paid me. I'll take the Titans to win and cover the -3.5 point spread. Next one is the Panthers at the Eagles. Eagles favored by 13.5 points against a Panthers team that has been in every single game they've played, basically, since Bryce Young came back after being benched. I'll take the Eagles, though, in this one. I'll take the Eagles to win and cover. The Eagles are a different team right now. The Carolina Panthers have a problem with stopping the run. They made Bucky Irving look like a superstar last week. So I will take Saquon Barkley on his MVP run as well as Offensive Player of the Year run. I will take that to continue with a massive game against the Carolina Panthers. My guess is he'll probably run it about 23 times in this game for probably $175. I think he has a tremendous game. The Eagles' offense efficiency will grow because of that, and that's really how they've been succeeding. Limit Jalen Hurts to only make the key throws and have Saquon Barkley dominate in the run game. I'll take the Eagles to win and cover the -13.5 point spread. Next one's the Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins in the last 3 games has been abysmal. No touchdowns, 6 picks, a passer rating of 59. It's bad. Very, very bad. Could we see Michael Penix out there? I think it's a high probability, especially with the fact that the offensive line of the Falcons is not as good as it was last year. The running game is okay. Bijan Robinson is having a decent season, but the defense is still abysmal. I think they're still last in pressure rate. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings are one of the highest in pressure rates, and Kirk Cousins, it could be because of the Achilles. I'm not entirely sure. When he gets pressured, he is a statue in the pocket. He does not move very well, which forces him into many mistakes. I'll take Brian Flores, who is trying to be a head coach again. I'll take him to dominate in this game and beat the Atlanta Falcons and cover a -5.5 point spread. The next one is the Jets at the Miami Dolphins here. This is an interesting one. The Jets are reeling, and last week I said they're waving the white flag after reports came out saying that players want the season to be over already, and I think that continues. The Dolphins are not playing in New York, where it's about to be about 35 degrees this weekend. They're playing in Miami, and we already saw what the Dolphins look like in cold weather against Green Bay. Their offense is inept. Their defense can't stop anybody. So I will take the Dolphins in above 50-degree weather, which matters for them because Tua only has 1 win in his career of 50 degrees or below. But because they're playing in Miami, because the Jets have been and will be for the rest of the season waving the white flag, I'll take the Miami Dolphins to win and cover the -5.5 point spread. The next one is the Saints at the Giants. Now this point spread is actually moved in a point favored more towards the Saints. So this is 5.5 according to FanDuel. It was 4.5 when I made the graphic. But I'll take the Saints to win and cover here. Drew Lock is going to be the quarterback for the New York Giants. Andrew Thomas is done. Dexter Lawrence is done. The offensive line for the Giants since Andrew Thomas went down is the worst in the NFL. I think Derek Carr, could this be his last year as a starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints? Possibly. I think the Saints need to get a big-time win here, and against the Giants offense that is terrible with Drew Lock out there against they played the Cowboys, or what team? I think they played the Cowboys most recently. Was it on Thanksgiving? That game was very difficult to watch. That was a sore to watch the Giants try to play football with Drew Lock at quarterback. I'll take the Saints to win here. Win big, 4.5, 5.5, doesn't matter. They cover the point spread and win on the road. Next one is the Seahawks at the Cardinals. Does Vegas learn from its mistakes? The last time these teams played back, I think in week 12, the Seahawks were 1.5 underdogs and beat them 16-6, and the Carolina offense ran for sub 50 yards. And yet the Seahawks are favored again, or the Seahawks are underdogs again. The Seahawks just came back against the New York Jets there. Give me the Seahawks. Give me the points. This is my favorite bet of the week. It is a part of the Harvey Hot End. Give me Geno Smith and JSN and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and this defense, which stopped Kyler Murray in its tracks. Give me them in an upset win on the road against Arizona. Next one is the Bears at the 49ers. I was going to pick the Bears plus 3.5, but the 49ers win. But all of a sudden, injuries started popping up. For instance, like DJ Moore, a key piece of that offense. So I got to take the 49ers here to cover the point spread at home. The 49ers, they got to figure something out. You talk about a demoralized team. I mean, this team is running on basically zero morale. There is nothing going right for this team. Injuries, poor play, both running backs on IR. Jordan Mason, CMC, on IR. That's up to Isaac Guerrero, I believe you pronounce his name. That could be completely wrong. I apologize. It'll be up to him and guys off the street to help out this 49ers running attack. Brock Purdy, remember when people were arguing about how he's the MVP of the league? What happened to those people? I don't see that. I thought Brock Purdy was an elite quarterback. Doesn't look that way. Really doesn't. And if Kyle Shanahan, if he wants to still be regarded as one of the best head coaches in the NFL, he's got to figure something out. Because I think as the season progresses, he's only going to get more criticism, and we're going to be, sort of honing in on, well, is he actually a good coach? He chokes in big-time moments. In the playoffs, he chokes. He has Brock Purdy. The system kind of works, but it doesn't. There's a whole thing going around with the 49ers team, but I hope that they get out this win. I'm picking them to win and cover up the 3.5 point spread. The next one is the Bills at the Rams. People are calling this a trap game. The Bills are fighting for something right now. They just they clinched the division, the AFC East, but now they're playing for the number 1 seed in the AFC. This is a very, very important game for them. They need to keep this win streak going. They're 10-2. They gotta keep fighting with the Kansas City Chiefs for the number 1 spot. I don't understand why people are calling this a trap game. Josh Allen is on an MVP run right now. If he wants to maintain that MVP caliber play and still be the odds favorite to win the MVP, he's got to win this big time game. The Rams don't put up a lot of points. Their third down percentage is terrible. The defense isn't great. Meanwhile, the Bills have one of the best scoring defenses in the NFL and one of the best scoring offenses in the NFL. Josh Allen, MVP tier, like I mentioned. Running game, James Cook, he's one of the best running backs in the league. Injury report right now, I think Dalton Kincaid is questionable to go. To me, that doesn't really matter. Josh Allen right now is on an absolute tear. Give me him and give me the points. I'll take the 3.5 for the Bills to cover on the road against the Los Angeles Rams. The next one is the Chargers at the Chiefs. The only reason I'm picking the Chiefs not to cover is really because I think the Chargers defense will do a pretty decent job at slowing down Mahomes. If the Raiders defense can slow down and stop Mahomes' is effectiveness, I think the Chargers defense can. Now, the only reason, and I was really planning on picking them, J.K. Dobbins is gone. He's out. J.K. Dobbins is really the heart and soul of Greg Roman's offense. We got to remember, he was the OC of the Ravens, who were the number 1 running team for several years. And when finally you got to figure out how to improve Lamar Jackson as a passer, he got fired. He had to go over to the Los Angeles Chargers, and they had to replace Greg Roman with Todd Monken, and Lamar Jackson's passing numbers went up, and his effectiveness as a passer went up. But because J.K. Dobbins, who is the heart and soul of the Chargers offense, is done for the foreseeable future, the offense put up 17 points against a terrible Falcons defense. 17 points. Also, Ladd McConkey hasn't practiced all week. He probably won't go. Quentin Johnson has drop issues. I'll take the Chiefs to win, but I think it's a field goal game just because of the defense. The defense took the ball away from Kirk Cousins 4 times last week. I think Mahomes throws at least 1 interception in this game. Give me the Chargers to cover, but the Chiefs win. And finally, again, this is my least favorite pick. I have the Bengals winning and covering -5.5 on the road, but I don't love it because the Bengals defense is so unpredictable. The Dallas Cowboys were 10.5-point underdogs against the Washington Commanders and somehow pulled out a massive victory against them. Then they go up against the Giants, and the defense plays shockingly well, and the offense looks somewhat competent. I understand the Giants are terrible, but I'm looking for little silver linings here and there about what could be, consistent throughout the season. The defense is improving. The offense looks somewhat capable, and especially against a Bengals defense that is abysmal. Why can't Cooper Rush do a number on this team? I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but the Bengals do have the sack leader, the receiving leader, and the passing leader. Is that enough? We saw last week it wasn't enough, and the defense got a pick 6 in that game too. I think it was the first drive. Joe Burrow is right now, statistically, the number 1 quarterback in the league just because of his team's, record. He's not even, I think, even in the top 10 of MVP votes. Yet he's having a tremendous season. I don't love it, but I got to trust Joe Burrow. I like him. Joe Burrow wins and covers on the road. Don't love that pick at all, but those are my Week 14 picks.
Those are interesting picks, and you did very well last week. Congratulations, 15-1. I was 13-3, 8-8 on the spread. I'm 5 games behind you on the win-loss and 7 games behind you in the point spread. Still time to catch up, and I'm hoping that my picks this week will help me get there. So here we go. I lost last night, but I did win on the point spread. So I got one on the point spread. I did lose on the straight up. The Raiders at the Bucks. I'm predicting the Bucks wind up winning their division by winning some of these games. I got them winning against the Raiders. I don't think the point cover the 6.5 point spread though. Their power rank has been moving up at 13. The Raiders are way down at 30 now, but Aiden O'Connell's been playing a little better, and I think that the Raiders will make a game of it, but I don't think they're going to win. The Browns at the Steelers. I'm looking for the Browns to upset the Steelers, to continue the sterling play that they had last week when we saw Jameis Winston pass for almost 500 yards. He won't throw 2 pick sixes in this game, and maybe won't even have an interception. I see the Steelers at 9-3 and number 7 in the power rankings as a playoff team, but I think that in the division, the games are always close. I look for the Browns to upset the Steelers and win this game. The Jaguars at the Titans. I'm picking the Titans to win and cover. This is a game of the bottom of the barrel here, with the Jaguars ranked last in power, and the Titans not far behind at number 28. The Titans at 3-9, the Jaguars at 2-10. I think Doug Peterson's going to be gone at the end of the year. I'm surprised actually he's still there. The Panthers at the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to win. I think Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned, on a run for MVP, on a run for Offensive Player of the Year, on a run for the most rushing yards in league history. I think he'll get one of those 3, and I think it will be there'll be the rushing title and the most yards by any player in NFL history, which is 2,105. I think he's got a good chance to get there, and we'll have, as you say, a big game against the Panthers. But I don't think they're going to cover the point spread at 13.5. That's huge, and the Panthers have been playing better. The Falcons at the Vikings. I like the Vikings in this game. They're at 10-2, number 5 in the power ranking. Kirk Cousins, I'd say he better have a good game, or I think he'll be benched. They're at 6-6. I don't think they're going to win the division now. I think Tampa Bay is going to take him over, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I like the Vikings to cover. Jets at the Dolphins. The Jets we just talked about are a disaster at 3-9, number 27 in the power rankings. The Dolphins on a resurgence here with Tua back at 5-7, number 18 in the power rankings. I like the Dolphins to win this game. The Saints at the Giants. The Giants are a disaster as well at 2-10, 31 in the power ranking against the 4-8 Saints, number 24 in the power rankings, 4.5 point spread. I think the Saints win and cover. Seattle at the Cardinals. I like the Cardinals. I think they get revenge on the loss that they had to the Seahawks when they played a couple of weeks ago in Seattle. Seattle at 7-5, 14 in the power rankings, leading the division. The Cardinals could move right up there and get into a tie with the Seahawks. So this is a huge game for them. I like the quarterback Kyler Murray to be better than Geno Smith, and I think the Cardinals will find a way to win this game and cover. The Bears at the San Francisco. The Bears, as I said, I thought they'd lose out at the end of the season. They'll continue their losing ways with Thomas Brown as their interim head coach. People we've never heard of as offensive coordinator and defensive play caller. They're 4-8. They'll continue to lose. The power ranking 23 will continue to drop. San Francisco still with a gasp of perhaps making the playoffs. They've got to have this win. I think they'll win and cover. The Bills at the Rams, as you said, it could be a trap game. I think the Bills find a way to win this and cover at 3.5. I do think L.A. still has a chance at the playoffs because they're in that NFC West division where everyone's got almost the same record. So they still have a shot, so they're going to play well, but I don't think they'll beat the Bills. The Chargers against Kansas City. Kansas City's going to lose one of these games pretty soon. They've been so lucky all the way along here, winning these one-score games, getting way behind in games and finding a way to come back and win. And even with Patrick Mahomes not playing all that well, the Chargers, they have a new head coach. He's done very well. Jim Harbaugh, a Super Bowl coach. He didn't win against his brother back then, but he was a Super Bowl coach. He's won a national championship as a college coach at Michigan. He's on a mission to win a Super Bowl. He may not get it this year, but he's really turned the Chargers around at 8-4, number 9 in the power rankings. They got some injuries with the running back Dobbins out, but their defense playing much better. I think they upset the Chiefs here and win this game in Kansas City. The Bengals at the Cowboys. This is a tough one to pick, I think. I think the Bengals still have a gasp at maybe making the playoffs at 4-8. I don't think it's going to happen, but and maybe the Cowboys also have a very outside chance of sneaking into the playoffs at 5-7. This will be a struggle. I do think that the Bengals are going to win and cover, and those are my picks.
Certainly should be an interesting week. That last Monday night, I hate that Monday night game.
That's a tough one.
The Bengals just,
it could be a good game.
They're so disappointing.
Could be a good game.
It's just like it's the exact same thing as the Los Angeles Chargers with Brandon Staley. Tremendous levels of talent. Just coaching sucks. Coaching underwhelming. Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, and you went 5-11. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? All right, it's that time. It's my favorite topic of the show, and I'm happy that we've had a massive bounce back this season. Went 4-1 last week. It's the Harvey Hot Hand. For those who don't know what the Harvey Hot Hand is, it's where I pick the top 5 games and 5 teams that you should bet on each week throughout the NFL season. We went 4-1 last week. Our total overall, because we've had some additional picks that I've included for the show, so that's why I got to watch to the very end. I add a couple ones in case, I change my mind or I like 6 teams instead of 5. Our total record is 37-33. We made the swing past 500. We're on a great streak now. We've had back-to-back weeks of only one loss. Went 5-1 last week, 2 weeks ago, 4-1 last week. So let's begin with my first pick of Week 14's Harvey Hot Hand.
Seahawks at Cardinals.
So the Seahawks lead the NFC. It leads the NFC West currently, and it's coming off a big win against the New York Jets. Remember the bounce back halftime victory? Ooh, it was a massive game. Pick 6 by Williams as well. Beautiful, beautiful pick 6. Let the big man run. Arizona has lost back-to-back games and has struggled offensively. JSN has emerged as a serious threat inside of the Seattle offense, and that defense has really picked up big time with Coach McDonald doing a tremendous job. The Seahawks, when they've been Seahawks have been favorable against the spread record against the Cardinals. They covered in 4 of the last 5 meetings, while Arizona has struggled within their own division. only covering 3 out of they went 3-14 straight up in their last 17 NFC West matchups. So give me the Seahawks all the way, and especially against this matchup, they cover 80% of the time in the last 5 meetings. The Cardinals are 31st in third down defense. They allow teams to convert nearly 50% of the time on third down. The exact percentage is 46.2. Week 12, last time this team played, Seattle defense held Arizona to 46 rushing yards. Give me the Seahawks. I don't understand what Vegas doesn't understand about the Seattle team. We have literally seen this Seattle team go up against this Arizona team and dominate. I say that it's a slight difference because I don't think Seattle only holds them to 6 points. I'll take the Seahawks to upset the Arizona Cardinals, win 24-23, and obviously cover the plus 2.5 point spread. Next one.
Browns at Steelers.
This one's interesting. I'll take the Browns to cover, Steelers to win here. Since Jameis Winston has been the starter, we've sort of looked at this off and say, that looks much better than Deshaun Watson, and the numbers back it up. Since Jameis became the starter back in Week 8, total yards per game for the Browns, number 1 in the NFL. Passing yards a game, number 1 in the NFL. Jameis Winston has been a tremendous offensive piece, minus the interceptions and minus the pick sixes. It's once again, I've said this probably 3 or 4 times now on the show. What would the Browns be if Jameis started Week 1? Pretty damn good, most likely. The Browns would have had a nice victory last week, but Jameis Winston did throw 2 pick sixes and another interception on, I believe, the 2-yard line late in the game to make it, a little bit closer. But you know what? Kind of sucks. I did pick by the way, that was a Harvey hot hand pick last week, Broncos to cover, which they did. But for me, this is all about the Browns defense. They tormented the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line and tormented Russell Wilson the last time these teams played. It was in the snow, but Myles Garrett had 3 sacks and 4 quarterback hurries, pressuring Russell Wilson on 51.5% of his dropbacks. I'd say that's the exact same thing. And also, Jack Conklin, he stopped TJ Watt, made him basically a no factor in this game. Jameis Winston tones down the turnovers, right? He needed divine intervention to save him from the pick sixes. God is on his side, it apparently seems. I'll take Jameis Winston to bring the Browns to cover the 6.5 point spread against the Steelers, but the Steelers do win 24-20. The next one.
Bills at Rams.
People are calling this a trap game. I don't understand why. Bills have the 6th best scoring defense, allowing 18.6 points per game. Meanwhile, the Rams only score I want to make sure I have this right, only score 21.2 points per game. So the defense is going to do a number on this Rams offense, which is ranked 20th. The Bills have the 2nd best scoring offense, and the Rams give up 24.2 points per game, which is the 21st best scoring defense. So the Bills score nearly 30 and also only allow 18. So give me the Bills defense, give me the Bills offense, and give me Josh Allen, who's on an MVP run right now, to maintain that. The Rams are 8-4 against the spread this year. The Rams are only 5-7. And if Josh Allen wants to keep his MVP level alive, he's going to need to get this big-time win against the Rams, who are fighting for the division still right now. So it'll be up to him to maintain that, as well as get a number 1 seed in the AFC, so everybody has to come to Buffalo in January to go play them, which should be absolutely brutal if they do get it. They're playing for the bye now. They already got the AFC East wrapped up pretty handily. Now they're going for the number 1 seed in the AFC. And the Chiefs, with the way this season has turned out, where it's a lot about luck this season, it seems to be, they need the Chiefs to get unlucky, which, like I just said, based on how the season's turned out, doesn't seem to be the case. Bills got to keep winning. I say they win here. Cover the minus 3.5 point spread and win 31-23. They get a big time win over a Rams team that's not that great. The next one.
Falcons at Vikings.
This one's interesting. Minnesota. Yikes, they're going to be an absolute threat to the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins, what the hell has happened to him? At this point, it's time to call in the backup, call in the replacement. Michael Penix, come in here. Minnesota's defense ranks 3rd in the NFL in pressure percentage, which is going to be a killer against Atlanta Falcons offensive line that has not been great, and against Kirk Cousins that has struggled as of late. The past 3 games, which they've lost every single game out of the past 3, Kirk Cousins, 0 touchdowns, 6 picks, a passer rating of 59.1. And the last time we saw the Falcons play, Kirk Cousins threw it to the Los Angeles Chargers defense 4 times. Not great at all. A passer rating under 60, like I said, in the last 3 games. It's bad. The Falcons have a 5-15 straight-up record in their last 20 road games. Give me the Minnesota Vikings to dominate in this one. Brian Flores still going for a head coaching job. A big-time victory over Kirk Cousins, and it could be the game where Cousins gets benched is a perfect thing to add to your resume. Give me the Vikings to win here, 26-17, and cover the minus 5.5 point spread. The last pick, of the Harvey Hot Hand Week 14 edition is...
Jets at Dolphins.
Traveling can be a nightmare.
Went the break there. Didn't want to do that. Next one is this one. Miami Dolphins -5.5 against the New York Jets. Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner, this is the big one, are both doubtful for this game, and C.J. Mosley got placed on IR today. The Jets have lost the past few games with Rodgers. Like I said, I think they've won 1 out of the last 9 or 1 out of the last 8. Rodgers has been a massive factor that the last 4 games Rodgers has thrown under 200 yards, and he hasn't thrown for 300 or more yards in, I think, 2 seasons. Mac Jones has had more 300-yard games than Aaron Rodgers has. They're at a 3-9 record. They're waving the white flag. It's time. The time of death was about 7 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, when Robert Saleh got fired. It's time to just blow it all up. Woody Johnson needs to either sell the team or get his act together because he's done a terrible job as of late. Get a head coach that actually matters. You need a quarterback. Rodgers is a cancer to that locker room, and it'll show once again this week. They completely fell apart against Seattle. The Dolphins' defense, though, has been very, very good at limiting opponents' scoring opportunities, and the Jets are 28th in offensive drives ending in a score. So I don't expect this game to be tremendously high scoring. I think they could get out to a very, very fast start like they did against Seattle, but ultimately the Dolphins will take over because this is not being played in New York when it's going to be about 35 to 37 degrees this weekend. It's going to be played in Miami, which is always above 50, which Tua thrives in. Bradley Chubb is coming back from the PUP list. He could play. He's listed as questionable, so he could be returning from his season-long injury. And also the Dolphins, like I said, are playing at home. The weather should not be an issue. Give me and also Tua on third down has been tremendous. The passing attack for the Dolphins since coming back from his concussions has been a tremendous upgrade for Mike McDaniel's offense. Give me the Dolphins to win 30-20, cover -5.5 point spread, and those are my 5 picks. This is brought to you by Dr. Squatch. So you go over to www.drsquatch.com/the Harvey Hour, get 3 free Fight Scrub bricks, $24 value, absolutely free with an order of $30 or more for new customers. Thank you for supporting the show. We greatly appreciate it, and we do this every single week. You tell me what picks I should have picked instead of my top 5 picks. So fire away.
The only one I would swap would be the Seahawks against the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to win and cover. I would swap the Bears, San Francisco, where I think San Francisco is going to win and cover.
There we go.
The others look okay to me. I think I would have picked those.
Yeah, because we agree on everyone but that one.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. That wraps it up for Week 14's edition of the Harvey Hot Hand. And that also wraps it up for today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We had a long one, a lot of content in there. So I hope everybody enjoyed. We thank you for the constant support as always. My name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday. We're going to break down all of Week 14. Monday Night Football should be interesting to talk about depending on the outcome. A lot to talk about for Week 14. We'll talk about all of that on Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, live right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift